Welcome, Hollie. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well.
Lovely to see you. Thanks again for coming in. Good to see you. Obviously, it's been a long time since I last saw you. Possibly the World Cup, actually, to be fair. I came and watched the first game with the boys, so it's really great to see you. Just a quick resume of your enviable career so far to date. Okay, so you do have an MBE. You are on Wikipedia, so I was able to find a few dates, stats, etc. So 182 caps so far. Obviously, looking to increase on those and get to the 200, which very few people have done. So yeah, an established and experienced international now. Obviously, we go back to 2006-7. Obviously, 2007 when your group was a very talented under-18 group, and we knocked the Dutch off their perch at the 2007 European Championships, which was a wonderful achievement for you guys, and certainly the hard work from that group. I'm hoping that it was part of the process of knowing that you as junior internationals had the ability to beat the Dutch, because they've always at that time were double Olympic champions. I think they're single Olympic champions. They won 2008 as well. So that kind of hopefully gave you guys the knowledge that you were most certainly good enough to beat those guys. Another thing I'll just mention as well is as you then came into the senior group, there was a lot of meddling going on with the group, and you're always knocking on the door. And one of probably the first questions I would ask is, was that important? The Commonwealth silver medal in 2014, where you were just a few seconds away, that disappointment, which I'm sure we all felt when we were watching it as well, was that a helpful thing? It wasn't helpful at the time because you wanted to win and you were seconds away from that gold medal, but do you think that contributed to the Europeans the following year and then the Olympics after that?
Yeah, hugely. I think we were 1-0 up with 11 seconds to go when they equalised, and then we went to shootouts and lost. So that stung. I think if we look at when you look at our photo of that medal ceremony, most people aren't really smiling. And for saying we would all won a Commonwealth silver medal, that sort of told a story. But that whole cycle leading to Rio was a bit of a journey. So I obviously joined after the London Olympics. I was still at university, sort of just finished 21s. So one of the youngsters coming in, and obviously the girls done really well in London, got a bronze medal at the Olympics, and it was just resetting. And the first year, 2013, went quite smoothly. We did quite well, qualified for the World Cup, just lost out on a gold again in shootouts at the Europeans. But 2014 was a huge dip. We went to the World Cup and sort of came 11th out of 12th. And that was rock bottom kind of with that group. So Commonwealth Games came, I think, 4 weeks later after the World Cup. So it was a bit, okay, let's just dust ourselves down. What went wrong? What can we sort of mend this quickly? And I'd say Commonwealth Games 2014 was the start of building our culture, which was the biggest thing we did. Sort of mindset going into the 2016 Games. And yeah, 2015 was about building that, qualifying for the Olympics, winning Europeans. But I would say it started, probably Commonwealth Games 2014. We got a new psychologist in and really started as a group to sort of, get the culture right in the squad in terms of what we wanted to achieve.
What would you say were the key elements? What were the things that everybody hung their hat on with regards to those culture? Obviously, we've got some things that we talk about with Seaford College on our sports culture. What were the things that everybody bought into? What was the things that really set things off?
So first, we actually went about talking about a vision. So what is the big thing that we want to achieve? And a lot of the girls that had gone to London spoke about they got a bronze medal in London, but quite a lot of them were disappointed after the Olympics and didn't feel like they had achieved what they wanted to. Their vision leading into the London Olympics was gold. So they were aiming for a gold medal and obviously didn't achieve that. So a lot of the girls came away from the Olympics not having as positive experience as it should have been, purely because that was the only thing they'd set themselves. So they spoke about that, and we decided as a group we wanted our vision to be more than just about winning a gold medal. That was one part of it, but we also wanted it to be more about hockey in general. So our vision, I don't know, some of you might have heard it, was inspire the future. So that's you guys, everyone that plays hockey, people that don't play hockey, getting them into the sport, getting them to see it. We wanted to do that. We also wanted to be the difference. So that was probably all the stuff that we weren't quite doing leading to the World Cup. So that was individual responsibility in terms of getting your nutrition right, turning up to training right, giving 100% at training, recovery, rest, everything. Every small little detail could make that difference. So that was another part. And then the last part was to create history. And for us at that point, it was to become the first GB women's hockey team to win a gold medal at the Olympics. So that vision for us encompassed more than just a medal. It meant more to us. And actually, after the Olympics, both personally, and I think if you ask the majority of our squad, the biggest thing we felt we achieved was people were talking about hockey. People that had never played hockey before were saying, oh, I watched that game, it was so exciting. And we went to hockey clubs and participation was up. And, you know, mums will get back into hockey that they haven't played since they were at school. So for most of us, that was the biggest thing that we got out of it. And actually the group that we're now in leading to Tokyo, which is a completely different group of girls, we had the same discussion at the beginning of this cycle. Okay, what do we want to achieve? And we actually decided to keep the same vision because we wanted it to be something that sort of transcends over different generations and connects us to all the people that have come before. So that was the biggest part. And then under that, we had our values, which this cycle are slightly different, and behaviours, which are the more day-to-day details that you absolutely need. And they're the stuff that ends up getting you to your goal. So, you know, behaviours, at the moment, our values are bring the fire. So mostly relating to the pitch stuff, how we turn up, how we approach everything, the sort of 1%ers in training. We're humble. So no matter where in the world, we're so lucky with the facilities that we have at Bisham Abbey where we train. But when we go to other places for tournaments and games, the facilities aren't quite the same and we have to adapt and be flexible and just appreciate what we have. The other one is we are one. So there's a squad of 26 athletes currently. Leading into Rio, there was 31 and there's only 16 people that hopefully get to stand on that podium at the end. But it's more than just those 16 people. Every single person in the squad, staff, support staff, play a part in achieving what we achieved in Rio and that we want to achieve in Tokyo. And then we have we are one, bring the fire. And then the last one actually is take the leap. So we decided that one because this cycle we had to take new risks, not risks, but adapt things, change things. You know, we can't keep the same thing. We're a different group of players and we have to evolve just like the sport. So that was another one of ours. But the main things are the day-to-day behaviours that we see that kind of fall under those.
It all kind of adds up, isn't it? So, and these are these non-negotiables as well, or these are ones that do you sign to it? Is it a piece of paper that you then put your name to? So
let me show you. So we all have these notebooks. So our GB hockey notebooks. We've got our vision there at the top. And then we actually have, so someone in our squad's dad's a graphic designer, quite literally. So we kind of had, so this is this cycle. So we've got our vision here, and then we've got our values at the top. And then these are all the behaviours that we have. So these are kind of the non-negotiables. So the bring the fire one, which is more related to pitch. So some of those are sort of winning the battle, strong in the tackle, diving back post, winning your 50-50s, etc. So we break them down into sort of tangible things we can see. So yeah, they're the non-negotiables that we have to bring every day.
And what does that build within the group as well? You sent the details through from Mr. Dubler about the seafood culture and our kind of pillars and the levels of performance that we look at as well. Any there that kind of struck a chord to you?
Gosh, you're testing me now.
Mr. Dubler might be able to share that if we need to share it again.
Yeah, I remember reading it, but it was right at the start when we were having our conversations. I think the biggest thing for our squad is everyone's buy-in to them, because they're just not going to work if people don't buy into our values.
Yeah.
And how they look for you. And people will interpret them slightly differently. So within our squad, every time we have a new member joining the squad, we do something called a welcome ceremony. So we'll have 4 different people in the squad explaining what the values mean to them. and that will look slightly different to each person. So a large part of it is sort of valuing that we have 26 very different people within our squad, and that difference is actually that gives us the strength as a unit. It would be really, really boring if we had 26 people that did exactly the same things and lived by them in exactly the same ways. So that difference is what gives us our edge, I think. But the most important thing is that you buy into them and understand what they mean. And then they're there for as well, for us to challenge each other when we believe someone's not living up to them.
Kind of accountability.
Yeah, it is, because especially in a team sport, we can't achieve anything unless we have everyone on board. So you are very much reliant on your teammates doing what they need to do and what we need them to do to be in the best position possible to create the best team possible, regardless of if they've been selected to play or not.
I guess as well from that is, my next question would be, what do you do? What do you do to relax? How do you turn the switch off? Where do you go? What's your relaxation? What do you do outside of being a GB international?
If you'd asked me this question a year ago, I would have said I study and I work, because I've worked the whole time as well, and I've been doing lots of exams, but they're finished now. And due to lockdown, I have realised that I do need to sort of look after myself a little bit better. You can't go for everything in both work, study, hockey, all at the same time. And obviously during lockdown, it's been really difficult to do that because you're sort of stuck at home and can't see family and friends. But during lockdown, I've Zoomed my 6-month-old nephew pretty much every day.
Oh, wow.
So for me, that's the time for me to switch off. And it helps me put things into perspective a lot. So if I'm getting stressed with exams or hockey, it just makes me realise that there's a lot more important things in my world, like family and friends. So for me at the moment, it's just keeping connected with them via WhatsApp, phone calls or Zoom.
That's really good to hear, because we had a lifestyle chat last week with a couple of guys talking exactly about this, finding this balance, and obviously exams with a lot of these students with GCSEs and A-levels, and then going on to university and juggling being an athlete at the same time. It's important to, as you've kind of really validated a lot of things that were said last week about trying to find that balance and focusing at the right time on the right bits. Yeah,
I think prioritisation is definitely a key. Having tried to balance all three throughout my whole sporting career, I think this is the only period where I haven't had study since I went to primary school. So at certain periods, hockey's the priority, and at certain periods, the work and the study is. And it's just making sure, as you said, you get the balance right, as well as taking some time out for yourself and doing something you enjoy, whether that's going on a walk and listening to a podcast or reading a book for enjoyment, not an educational book, which I sometimes can fall into the trap of doing. But it is really important to keep you fresh.
That's really great to hear. I mean, I've probably got one more question, but I really want to open it up to the rest of the guys as well, because otherwise it just feels like it's just me chatting to you. But I think I'm hoping that the guys are really getting a great deal out of this, because it also validates a lot of the stuff that we've had previous to that. So Miss Miller, what have you got?
Yeah, so we've got some really good questions coming in. I know Mr. Bird will jump in to ask some as well. But yeah, talking about our core values, we really have been looking at learning behaviours and talking about, individual confidence. And there's a good question that's come in, and sort of they were asking, when did you start mentally believing that you think you could play for England? And are you really confident? Is that something that comes naturally to you? And if it isn't, some advice to obviously some of our younger people that maybe struggle with their confidence?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm going to start at the end rather than the beginning. Well, near the end. I remember coming into the senior programme, I was quite a youngster, and within our squad at the time, you had some incredibly successful senior players, the likes of Helen Richardson-Walsh, Kate Richardson-Walsh, Alex Danson, all these people that had got an Olympic bronze medal, so many caps, so experienced. And I remember we sat in a circle and we had a meeting about confidence, and the psychologist said something like, okay, stand up if you feel confident. And there was literally 2 people out of 31 that stood up, and it wasn't any of those senior girls that stood up. They all admitted that they struggle with confidence. And it was only at that point that I kind of was a bit blown away. I, as a youngster, had looked up to those players throughout my whole life. They played in the Sydney Olympic Games when I just started playing hockey. And so I kind of was like, why are they not confident? They're obviously incredible. They've achieved all this, so many caps. They're amazing hockey players. How can they struggle with confidence? And I think it was only then that you realise that I think the vast majority of people do. And again, if you ask me the question now, am I a confident person with playing hockey, then that's definitely something that I've had to work on. I don't think I ever fully believed I would make it to the senior squad. I probably still don't. I think it'll only be when I retire and look back on my career that I'll fully appreciate just how lucky and privileged I've been to achieve that. It's kind of all a bit of a dream. But again, as a youngster, I started playing hockey at 8. The Sydney Olympic Games, we did a project on it at primary school. I was 9 years old and sort of fell in love with the Olympics and the whole buzz of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I would love to do that. But again, never in a million years did I, from a small town in the middle of Derbyshire, ever did I imagine I'd be there. And I actually remember trialing for the under-16s again, never thought I'd get in. I think I snuck into that team. I'm pretty sure Sue Chandler, my under-16 coach, said, yeah, we didn't really notice you until the last day and I must have done something. So I kind of scraped into that. And through my whole junior international career, I was lucky enough to go 16s, 18s, 21s. I was definitely never the most talented hockey player. And yeah, Mr. Barnes can probably back me up there, but I definitely wasn't the most talented. I don't have the most hockey skills. I haven't got any fancy 3D. Wasn't particularly quick. Like I'm fast enough, just about manage, but I'm not a really quick player or anything like that. And so I just had to learn, okay, well, I'm getting selected and being in this team, and why is that? And then you start looking at, okay, what are my strengths? And for me, when I first joined the program, I wouldn't be able to say these are my strengths. I just couldn't physically say that I had any strengths. So that's been one of the biggest things, is to identify those and be able to actually say them out loud. So now I can say, yeah, my strengths are my core skills, which is pretty boring probably for most people, but different ranges of passes. I can receive the ball, tackling and sort of 1v1 defense. Again, some people probably don't glorify that bit, but for me, that's one of my strengths. And then probably reading the game. So very basic things, but stuff that has got me selected for teams and has got me to where I am now. So I think instead of always focusing on, I can't drag flick or I haven't got these 3D skills, for me, it's been focusing on, okay, no, I can do these really well, and I'm going to make sure that I'm the best at these so I can get selected. So I definitely have been on a journey with confidence. I'd say I'm now at the point where, as everybody, that kind of goes up and down as well. So you constantly have to work on it. But I think the key is identifying what you are good at, not just focusing on, I need to get better at this, I'm weak at this, etc. Of course, you want to work on those bits, but also it's really important to work on your strengths, appreciate your strengths, and be able to say them out loud. So yeah, confidence, I think, is a big struggle for everyone, and it's definitely still a work on for me.
Yeah, so true. And I know that everyone will sort of be listening and agreeing with everything you're saying, and definitely be able to relate. Linking to like another learning behaviour, we've got a good question talking about nerves. And so the question is, were you really nervous taking the penalty flick? And if so, do you have any tips on how you could overcome nerves and how you overcame them in that scenario? And what sort of research did you do prior? Did you already know how you wanted to beat the goalie? Had you done any research before that obviously scenario came about?
So obviously at Bisham, where we train, we sort of had I think there was about 7 or 8 of us shufflers that Danny sort of got together, and we practiced them on a regular basis. We had meetings with a psychologist in terms of, okay, where do we stand? How do we approach the ball? What do we think? What do we want the goalie to think? How do I walk there? Where do I look? All these tiny little things that you probably don't think about. We spoke about as a group. The goalies gave us tips in terms of when you do this, that makes me feel like X, etc. So we spoke a lot about it, rehearsed it a lot at Bisham. And we had a rehearsal like, oh, imagine it's the Olympic final and you're taking the, like, we had all that, but there's only a limited amount of sort of imagining you can do. And you never really think that you're going to be in that situation. I had always been in the group, but had never been picked in an actual tournament to do it. So we went to Shuffles in 2015, and I wasn't picked as part of the 5. That didn't bother me in a bad way in terms of, oh, I want to be picked for them. Or either way, it was fine. But we had spoke about everything. We'd rehearsed everything. And then when we got to the Olympics, obviously in the final, everyone does their own sort of video work. So you do it on the pitch, you look at, okay, I'm going to be playing against these 2 people here. What are their skills? What do I need to be aware of? And we do exactly the same for shuffles. So Maddie, our keeper, looked at all the Dutch shuffle takers. They had gone shuffles against Germany in the semi-finals, but we have a database full of theirs anyway in previous tournaments. And we did the same. So if I come up against Sombret, their goalie, for example, where are her weaknesses? I kind of had an A and a B plan, because it definitely depends on what the goalie does. So you do all your homework, you have that wrote down, but you don't, again, ever think it's going to happen. And then after the game, see Danny comes down and goes, these are the 5. And I was number 5 at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, it might not even get to me. You know, Maddie will just make all these saves. The girls will score theirs first and it probably won't get to me. So right now you've got your plan, but let's just stay calm. And do my role within the 5, which I had, which was looking for, do we need to tee anything, etc. So it was only when our number 4, Laurensworth, took hers, and I was like, if she scores, won't need to take it, but if she has hers saved, then I will. She has hers saved, so then in my head, I'm like, right, okay, I'm going next. Let's think about this. Didn't need to think about what I was going to do, because I had my options in my head. I was really clear, if the goalie did this, I would do this, etc. The biggest thing that I was just in my head was, okay, the worst thing you can do right here is rush it and like let nerves take over you. And that will be my biggest regret looking back, is if I let sort of feelings and emotions affect what I'm about to do. And I do think in that moment, I didn't feel nervous. I had my plan. I kind of remember saying to myself, what's the worst that can happen here is it gets saved. Maddie will probably save the next one anyway. So kind of took the pressure off myself that way, knew all the girls were behind me. And it bizarrely felt like we were just in this bubble. So it did kind of feel like we were just at Bisham, and it wasn't an Olympic final. And I do think that is just down to the amount of preparation we had done, both on the pitch and also from a psychology point of view, the homework. Like, everyone was so prepared that I didn't feel nervous in the moment. And actually the time, as soon as the whistle went, it went really, really slowly. You know, I knew how I was going to walk up. I knew where I was going to look. I knew I sort of had broken it down, that I didn't need to think about any of that. And I just didn't want to rush it. But I remember that night after we had won and we just got back to the village, got back to our rooms. And I remember lying on my bed, obviously couldn't sleep. Me and my roommate just couldn't sleep. And I remember thinking about it, and I was nervous, thinking about the penalties. So I was nervous after, but in that moment, because of all the preparation we had done, it was just calm. And it was only when the ball went back in the back of the net that kind of everything sped up a little bit. And then kind of it sunk in what that moment was. So yeah, I think the preparation we had done was key, and it's quite amazing that it can get you in that state. I think quite calm.
Do you want to see it again?
Do you know what? I haven't actually seen it for a while. For the first year, I think it was played every week wherever I went.
I was going to say, I wasn't sure whether you got tired of it or got bored of it. I've probably seen it a bit. So I've got it here. I've got some other bits and bobs that but I would just bring this. So there's Alison Annan, the Dutch coach, and I'll let the rest speak for itself. Can everyone see that? Cool.
Yes. Yep.
I don't think I've ever jumped that high before. Our S&C coach was really impressed.
I think you had a fair reason to as well. So, and then obviously you were really calm and collected at the end, but kind of realization of a dream. So,
yeah,
for a lot of people as well, I think there was still a hole in my the ceiling where I punched the air so much at home. So we're back. Yeah, so lovely to kind of share that with you as well, and a wonderful moment that obviously then went a bit bonkers afterwards when you came home. How do you then get back down to earth? How long did it take after that, with all the madness that went? You get the freedom of the city. So you can take cattle down the street of your village back home, or your town back home. How do you then get back to some kind of sense of normality? And who were the people that you turned to, or that did get you your feet back on the ground?
We kind of, when we were over there, we were just in this bubble as ourselves. None of us were on social media. We hadn't seen anything. We didn't have any idea. And I remember being on the plane on the way back, and the BA air hostesses said to us, like, you do realise what it's like back home, don't you? And we were all like, what? No, and it wasn't until we got off the plane at Heathrow, and I remember coming through to the baggage area, and there was a little boy in a Surbiton hockey kit at Heathrow. Like, people had come down to see us come back, and it was only then, with people, all the flags, that kind of sunk in, as in, like, oh my gosh, it's the first Olympics I hadn't seen on TV. Obviously all the others, like London, I'd been down and watched, and it was great, and you sort of get all the BBC coverage and you feel the buzz. But when you're out there and in it, and it's just your team, you kind of just see it as another hockey tournament, with some celebs walking around, some celebs like Bolt and Jess Ellis walking around in between as well. But so it was only then that it kind of hit me. But I think my family, they didn't go over anyway. But my family have always been, and going home has always been quite grounded for me anyway. I love going home. I love where I'm from. And I went down to the hockey club where I first started quite soon after. So it was all really exciting, got to do loads of really cool stuff. But I mean, life kind of went back to normal a few months after. We were back in, those of us that were staying on were back in training for Tokyo. And for me, it was very much, I remember being on the pitch at the final on the phone to my parents, and it was very much, this has been amazing, but I want to do it all over again. And obviously for some girls, it was the end of their careers, and they were like, amazing, it sort of topped our careers off. But for me, it was very much, I want to do this all over again. So it was relatively soon that I could kind of like put that all in a box, and was like, right, Tokyo, next thing, I want to do this, this and this. So I think we got back into training in the November. I was back at work as well. So for me, it was quite easy to do that. I think a few others probably struggled, but actually in some sense probably made the most of the excitement as well, which I sometimes don't celebrate success. I probably don't do that well, because I'm very much right, next thing. So I probably do need to learn a little bit from a few of them in terms of
resetting your goals. Listeners got a couple of really good questions.
I've got last two, and then I'll pass on to Mr. Bird just to ask a couple before I'm sure we'll have to round it up. But the first one, you were sort of just saying there as well, going straight back to work. And obviously advice for our younger pupils here. You were saying about how you were studying a lot at the same time as playing. Do you have any advice about managing the two?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I've literally managed the two all the way through. So junior hockey, obviously schools, A-level, university. In my first year fully on the programme, I was in my third year of university studying. And then straight after that, then started my professional accountancy exams, which I've been doing pretty much for the last 6 or 7 years. So balancing the two, one, it's hard. But the things that helped me the most was using my calendar. So we already have like our pitch times and our gym times and etc., everything in, and really just blocking out some regular slots for study and sticking to them. That was a key in terms of planning, but also planning in some downtime as well, and just being really, really strict with it. When you get to a certain time, okay, close the books, now it's downtime. So being super organized was a must for me. But also I saw studying as a time to also switch off from hockey. So I didn't see it as I've got to study. It actually helped me perform, I think, better, especially that first cycle when you can overanalyze and overthink everything. Actually having something else to think about really helped. So yeah, being super, super organized, giving yourself some downtime so you're just not overworked and overstressed, and not being too hard on yourself. And again, prioritizing things. So at certain points, I knew that hockey was key, and at other weeks, we have rest weeks, or after tournaments, then study and work took priority because they were the time. So really highlighting throughout the year your sort of pressure points, and which bits take priority. So yeah, I'm a planner.
Nice. I think that's absolutely brilliant advice, especially for a lot of our students that have got exams coming up, and also obviously sometimes at the moment exams not coming up, and it's how they're managing that. And I think that's some fantastic advice. So thank you for that. Last one from me before I pass over to Mr. Bird. How important do you think attitude is at elite level?
I think attitude is the key thing. In all honesty, as I said, I wasn't the most talented junior, and I look at my England 16s photo and there's so many talented hockey players, and out of this under 16 photo, I think there's 2 of us that made the senior team, and you just think, where did all these people go? And I genuinely think it is mindset. Obviously some people got to a certain point and for them the priority was other things in the career that they wanted to go for, and that's fine. But for me, I obviously had my goal from a young age, and I was willing to do absolutely everything and take every opportunity possible to get there. And I always live by having no regrets. So if I do everything possible and I don't make it, then that'll be okay. I'll be able to deal with it because I would know I've done everything I can to achieve it. And if I did make it, fantastic, amazing. So again, I wasn't the most talented, but I was willing to, for example, I missed the school ski trip every year because I was playing hockey. I missed out on sort of the girls' holiday in after year 11 and A-levels because I was playing hockey, and for me that was the priority. So little choices like that, I guess. I don't think it's sacrifices, but for me it was what's important. What do I want to achieve? Where do I want to go? And then also there were times where you have setbacks. So I remember in under 21s, we were at Europeans, I think it was 2010, and the vast majority of our under 21s England team got selected for a senior trial. And that was the time when the likes of Twiggy, who I'd played with junior hockey, kind of got selected, went to the senior team. And I was one of the very few that didn't get offered a trial. And I remember at the time, obviously being gutted about not having the opportunity, and then also sort of the doubts creep into your head. Okay, am I not good enough? Does Danny, the coach of the women's team, not like me? Do I have the attributes that just don't fit into the senior team? So you have all these things that come in your head, and then at the same time, I remember thinking, well, okay, I might not have them, but these again, my strengths. I'm going to continue. I'm going to push at it, and if I don't make it, I don't. I'll have no regrets, and kind of you just polish yourself off. And I went to uni, and I was really fortunate that at that time, the sort of NPC centres, there was no one at my university, but there were 3 boys in the 21s that were at Hallam University, the other university in the city. And for 3 years, I got to train with 3 international boys, which I think for some girls would find it really daunting. And I mean, it wasn't pleasant, but 1v1s against boys, and you just got annihilated every session. But I think for me, it was the biggest period of growth because my hands had to move faster, my feet had to move faster. And then it was during that period that after 2012, I got offered a trial, etc. So everyone's going to have setbacks, whether that be injuries or not being picked at a certain point. And you're going to have those moments where you doubt yourself. But I think if again, you reset your goals, okay, what can I control? And that's really key because you can't control everything. You know, certain coaches like certain things, and I couldn't control that. But I can control what I do, what my attitude is, and how I choose to approach things. So yeah, mindset, I definitely think, is the biggest thing that you can become successful in anything, not just sport, in anything.
Amazing, thank you, Hollie. I've got a couple of questions here about physicality in the game. You know, hockey seems to be getting more and more physical all the time. How did you prepare as a unit going into Rio, with the demands of the environment out there, obviously going deep into the tournament, and then, you know, going to shuffles? You're obviously incredibly well prepared physically. How did you go about that as a squad?
Yeah, so we're really lucky. We have a strength and conditioning coach at Bisham. And when we train at Bisham, we all wear GPS units that obviously monitors and tracks everything we do in training, and heart rate monitors. And we knew the Rio schedule at the Olympics was going to be the toughest schedule any Olympics had been. And we knew that we would have to play 8 games in 13 days. So from a year, 2 years out, we were preparing for that scenario. So we actually do the same now. We've just been through the same thing, where we try and replicate through both training and practice matches. The intensity will have to play out over those 13 days, on 8 days. So we replicated that a lot. For Rio, it actually wasn't supposed to be that hot. When we got out there, it was actually a lot hotter than was forecast. So we didn't do too much in terms of heat and acclimation. But that's something this cycle leading to Tokyo we're definitely having to do. We know that Tokyo is going to be really humid and quite hot, and we're not that used to. The men are actually more used to us than playing in humid conditions. So we went out to Tokyo in 2019. That was supposed to obviously be a year before the Olympics, to practice in some humidity. Obviously, COVID hasn't helped with our prep this time round. So we're supposed to be in the Southern Hemisphere getting some of that prep in right now, but obviously that's not happened. So again, really lucky at Bisham, we've got a heat chamber, so you can turn the heat up, turn the humidity up. There's a limited amount we can do in there, so we can get on a bike because it's relatively small, but we're really lucky that we have those facilities. So yeah, we do hockey training, we have some top-ups, physical running top-ups, and then we also do a lot of stuff in the gym as well. And most of our gym work is for injury prevention, which is absolutely key, because again, to manage 8 games in 13 days, we have to be physically robust and not be breaking down. So that was key. And then also for us speed power elements as well. So we have a mixture of those things, but everything we do is monitored. Every morning we have to fill out an app, heart rate, how we're feeling. All sessions we have to record in terms of length, RPE, etc. So S&C are in charge of our planning. But yeah, Olympic Games are the physically most tough. We play with 16. Everywhere else, we always play with 18. So we're on reduced people as well. So we were very, very well prepared.
That's an amazing answer. And just finally, we've got a student ask. Obviously, you know, we're in these times with COVID and we're locked down, and you know, how are you managing to keep on top of your sort of physicality whilst we're in this state? And you know, do you have any advice for our students who are in similar situations at home, not much equipment maybe? You know, where do you get the motivation to keep going and keep physical?
So in the first lockdown last year, we were in the same boat as everyone else. So our trip had just got cancelled, and then we all had to train at home. And at that point, the Olympic Games were still going ahead. So for me, for example, we cleared our garage out and just gave myself a space with my stick and a ball. And, you know, I wouldn't be able to do a lot, but I'd be able to do some sort of V-drags and just keep my hands and eye coordination in. And obviously get out and do running. For me, I like to, again, set out my days. So I knew what I was doing in the morning, knew what I was doing in the afternoon, and really have it organised and planned. Now we're really, really lucky that we're able to train at Bisham. Even though it looks a lot different to normal, we're able to be together and train. But I know there's a girl in our squad, for instance, I think she runs an Instagram account to be doing hockey at home. So there are a lot of things you can do without a hockey pitch. I know when I was younger, my mum would go absolutely mad playing hockey in the house. But I would get a tennis ball, and I remember like pushing against the bottom stair. Luckily it was carpeted rather than wood. and then getting a few cushions out and sort of going around them. And yeah, I used to get shouted at a little bit if I hit skirting boards and things like that. But I think with the tennis ball as well, it certainly helps because you have to be so much more softer with your hands because it bounces off. So I think there's a lot of things you can do at home and in the garden. There's a lot of YouTube videos, especially, as I said, some of the girls in our team are doing that. I'm really just planning it. You know, none of us ever want to do exercise. I've had 2 sessions today and one of them was at home and I really didn't want to go out, and I planned like I'm going to do it at 1. Really don't want to go out, but you always feel better after. You never regret doing something, and it makes you feel, well, it makes me able to work better. I then sort of feel refreshed and motivated to get on with some study or some work, and are able to concentrate better. So there are a lot of things you can do at home, even though it's tough. And if in doubt, you can always link with someone on Zoom and sort of do it together as well. Because most of us don't really like training on our own.
No, absolutely. I think that's really sound advice. And then the last thing that I've had asked to me is, what happens now? What's the timeline between now and Tokyo? What does that look like?
So again, good question. It's forever changing, as you would expect in COVID times. So we were supposed to be in Spain and just got back last week for 3 weeks. And that got cancelled the day before we were supposed to go because of travel corridors. So we were supposed to go there, 3-week training trip, have some matches against Spain. So instead we tried to replicate that at Bisham. So tried to get some 11v11 in and replicate the 8 matches in 13 days. So currently on a rest week, then back into training, but I think we're trying to get some matches in end of March sometime. Whether that goes ahead, don't know, with COVID. So we are having to be really, really flexible. And also appreciate that we've got Bisham, we've got some amazing facilities, and so we have to make the most of what we've got. I think we're trying again. We want to get a warm weather trip in April because of the humidity. But again, depending on COVID, that would depend whether we can get away or not. But again, if not, we'll be at Bisham trying to replicate what we had planned out there. And then we've got Home Nations Europeans that are supposed to be going ahead in June. So this is the first time that Europeans and Olympics will be in the same year. So obviously the Olympics were supposed to be last year, and you have Europeans every 2 years. So this year it falls in the same year, which for Great Britain is a bit of an issue because obviously we play as Great Britain at the Olympics, but Europeans will play as England, Wales and Scotland. So England and Scotland are in the same European A division tournament. So we'll potentially be playing against some of the girls that will be playing for Great Britain a month or so down the line, which isn't ideal. But again, COVID has mean we kind of have to be flexible. So yeah, European is supposed to happen in June and then the Olympics in July. So selection will be tricky because you could have some girls going to Europeans that have been selected for England Europeans, but not the Olympics. So we do have a plan, but we have loads of different versions of it this time around, which is unusual. I mean, normally I could tell you what I'm doing next year, the year after. Sort of the wider plan over the whole 4 years has kind of been put out. But this year, slightly different. So a lot of flexibility is required.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
It does look like there's a heck of a lot to be looking forward to, but also to navigate as well. And I guess it's going to test everyone's resolve. But I guess with that 26 mentality, with the whole group that you've got around you, your family and friends as well, you try and navigate as best you can. I think that's what we've certainly seen is the flexibility that you're having to show, that kind of adaptability was all part and parcel of an international career. And obviously us as students, staff at school as well, we're all having to, to show that kind of adaptability and perseverance. So hopefully it will hold us in good stead. So we could probably talk for absolutely hours, but certainly from my point of view, I thought before I hand back to Liam, a huge thank you. Been absolutely stuck on all the stuff that you've been saying, and I hope that the students as well have learned a great deal. It's been a real privilege to have you on the Zoom, and great to see you again. I did actually manage to find.
Oh wow, yeah, the tartan.
So that's where it all kind of began, and then I'm sure you've got a slightly bigger one.
Yeah, the Olympic medals are huge.
Yes,
absolutely massive. Yeah.
A very good trade up, but no, a huge thank you on behalf of Seaford and from everyone here as well. So I'll probably hand you back to Liam as well, but so we can let the guys go as well. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Guys, Ben, thank you. I think you're like a young Des Lynam. What an amazing job you did there interviewing. It was so nice to see the dynamic between the both of you as well. Obviously, coach, player, and Hollie. What an amazing! It was just a privilege just to listen. For me, who's well over the hill now. But you know, if I had my time again, some of the takeaways from today's talk, absolutely amazing. The detail of your answers and the insight into being a top level athlete and achieving such an amazing thing is just absolutely superb. So I think our scholars, that's something for our scholars will remember forever. And we wish you, you know, it's so nice to welcome you here. We'd love to welcome you here again in the flesh if you ever get time. I know you're a busy lady, but you know, you're always welcome at Seaford College. Thank you very, very much. Good luck with everything you're doing with the Europeans, even against Wales, and you know, and the Olympics when they come around. You know, it's been an absolute pleasure listening to you. So thank you ever so much.
You're very welcome.